life. It's all just different approaches to the same thing. Each expression of life is an approach to life itself, to the expression of consciousness. And we are both those things. We are consciousness, and we are consciousness as expression. And we can use life for both those terms. But yeah, it's how to distinguish between them. Sometimes I like to do a big L for life, as in all life, all consciousness, essence. And life as in an individual expression of life, just like an ordinary word, ordinary little L. And yet it's ordinary and extraordinary, the fact that we are here and we are experiencing this. And that's, it's a common phrase, you've heard that phrase many times, there must be more to this. Well, what is this? Depends what you see this as. Depends how you are seeing life. Depends on your approach, your view, your aspect, your perspective on the life that you are. Because what you call you, what we most often call the individual, the identity of body-mind, that is an expression of consciousness at whatever level you're at. So whatever level your consciousness is at, that is your expression. And so this is why changing the world, we don't even need to be preoccupied with changing the world. It's all alright as it is in many ways. Yeah, there are many things we need to change, but that is part of the journey also. So, and that journey, in order for the journey to happen, there have to be things we are dissatisfied with. There have to be things that work and don't work. It's the two aspects of the duality, and they hold our experience here. So yeah, all is as it needs to be, and yet there is a momentum here, yet there is a direction towards spiritual understanding, towards understanding. It doesn't have to be spiritual understanding, it is simply understanding. In a way, what people call the spiritual is very scientific. It's the science of direct experience, and this is what yoga is. Yoga is not just stretching and making shapes and contorting your body into making a shape. Yoga is being with yourself. Yoga is facing yourself in the moment where you are. It's not trying to be somewhere else, it's being where you are. This is what yoga is, and yoga means union with all aspects of ourself, union with the divine, with the individual soul, with the universal soul from which it was born. And ultimately there's no differentiation. So just as there's little L life, big L life, it's all life. And where are you entering the game? It's just a case of where you're entering the game. What do you want your experience to be? And when we really start to come to know who we are, then we take our power back. The process of the knowledge of who we are is our power, and from there we have broader possibility. The more attuned we are to our essential nature, our essential consciousness, the broader the options, because the broader we see our choices. If we are blinkered into like a single way of seeing, choices can seem very narrow, choices can seem non-existent. So really it's an opening, it's a yielding, it's a flowering, this coming into consciousness, into awareness. It's a process of growth, and it's also a process of, it's an active process of growth, and it's also a process whereby we're receptive to the light of the sun, spirit, we're receptive to the nourishment of the earth. So food, matter. So that works in that flower analogy as much as it works for a human being. So essentially we're growing towards our true nature if we are embracing this experience of life in any meaningful way. We are coming to some sense of who we really are. And this is not an identification with something external. It's not saying, well, I like playing football, so I'm a footballer, that's who I am, I'm a footballer. It's not association, it's not identification, it's about stripping all those things away, holding them up to the light, seeing if they're true, stripping all the things that you thought were you, but actually on closer inspection are not, stripping them all away to come to your true essence, your true nature. And this is what I want to talk about today. So, nature. Nature. Such a simple word, and we all have an idea of what nature is. And maybe beyond ideas we have an innate knowing of what nature is. But this is a term which, like all others, is open to misunderstanding, misdirection. And so, I wanted to talk a little bit about nature today. So, we'll talk about that in a roundabout kind of way. So what I wrote here to start on is, there is me and there are rules. They are two separate things. So this is what someone was saying yesterday. So she was sort of realising that the rules we live life by, the societal rules that are in place, are actually separate from who we are. There's it's almost like we're naturalised and neutralised into these ways of being which society endorses or encourages or puts in place for us to follow. And I just found it quite clear, this idea that there is me and there are rules. So if we didn't create the rules and the rules didn't create us, then what's the connection? There's no connection. It's just a case of whether we choose to play by societal rules or we choose to play by our own rules. And for me, I choose to play by my own rules, but that doesn't mean senselessly going against society's rules, not at all. And that doesn't mean my own limited rules. That means I have a guidance beyond the guidance of society. I have a guidance in terms of spirit. And we all have this if we can strip away all we are not to find all we are. And that all we are naturally guides us through every aspect of life. So, nature, this is like these societal rules are almost naturalised. They're almost made to be seen as the only operational way. They're made to be seen as your nature, based on a nature of a separate self, against or in connection and community with other separate selves. But our nature is broader than that, and rules are broader than that. So there's societal rules and there are natural rules, there's natural law. And then that statement, me and rules are separate, it doesn't hold true anymore when you're speaking in terms of natural law, because natural law is what turns the planets and the seasons, and that is what we were born of and from and are not separate to. So often we see nature as outside of ourselves, but nature, we were born of nature. Our internal organs now are a functioning part of nature, of natural law, of natural systems that is just happening just as the sun rises, reaches the zenith and sets again. It's just happening. Nature is just happening. And when you can see that, it kind of takes the pressure off, because stuck in our limited self, we're driven to achieve, to get somewhere over the other parts, to prove ourselves, to be successful. Well, being successful is knowing yourself, and the proof is in the direct experience that you feel when you are in connection with your true self, your true identity. So yeah, you and the rules, they're two separate things when it comes to societal law that tries to lock you into name and number, to a limited sense of self-identity. So it's because we don't have an understanding of spirit, of divinity within society, because that has been taken out of, and we have ourselves allowed it to be taken out of the arena of understanding in terms of functional day-to-day existence, because we've been stripped ourselves of the spirit that we are. We end up in this limited place, this place where there are laws and rules created that lock you into your name and number, to a limited sense of self-identity, to a sense of who you are within the constraints of time and space. When who you are is beyond time and space, who you are is directly felt in the present moment, which is beyond time and space. The present moment is here, is now. It's not in the past, it's not in the future. And where are you but here? You are not in the past, you are not in the future. Sure, on the line of time, you had a past, you experienced things in what your mind says is the past, and you will experience things in what your mind says is the future. But every moment of your past was lived in the present moment at that time. Every moment of your future will be lived in the present moment at that time. There is no time other than the present moment. Just like there is no space other than here. Yeah, you were there before, and you're over there at another time, but in each place you were somewhere else. You were always here in that place. Just as you take yourself with you wherever you go, you're always here, you're always now. Here and now is all there is. And in here and now, we're moving beyond the constraints of time and space. Time and space essentially separate out here and now, break it down into boxes, into categories, and tell you that you must fit into those boxes, or one of those boxes, and that is who you are. If you accept that for yourself, then you become limited. It's like when you're in a box, you're excluding yourself, you're defining yourself by being in a box, and this is what we're here to do. We're here to define who we are in many ways. But it reaches a point where you've defined yourself so strongly that you find you've put yourself in a box at the expense of all else. So for example, I am good. You put yourself in the box of goodness, and badness is outside. So you're never gonna, with that base assumption, you're never gonna see properly, because you're clouded by this belief that you are good and outside is bad. It's like this very simplistic example. For example, another one. It's all duality. So let's have a think. So if you think of yourself as unsuccessful, you put yourself in the unsuccessful box, and success is always outside of you. If you're in a box, then essentially a box is a limitation, and so you're never going to be enough, and you're always going to be looking outside of yourself for contentment. And what is contentment? Contentment is knowing yourself. So if we're always looking outside of ourselves, for our contentment, then we're never going to get anywhere. We're stuck. And this is what I mean by locked into time and space. It's like we were talking about love the other video, and one thing I forgot to mention is that when someone's identifying with their identity in time and space, so they're saying, I am this and not that, I am that and not this. It's like an identification based on duality, based on the variations of time and space that are possible. When someone is coming from that perspective, essentially they're coming from I am separate. They're coming because time and space is about separating out things in order that we can have variation. I'm not knocking it, it's a natural part of the process. But if we identify solely with that, then we're locked in to a single separate part. And if someone comes into a relationship thinking they're separate, then what is their motive for coming into a relationship? It's a separate self is a needy self. A separate self needs what it sees as outside itself, and it seeks the other to provide that. Whereas someone who knows who they are, who is whole in themselves, comes into connection with others not out of a sense of lack or a sense of need to be fulfilled by something outside that they've disconnected from and want back. Someone who understands themselves and comes into a relationship is coming from a sense of wholeness and operating from a sense of wholeness, wanting to meet with or share with or be with or express with another whole. So there's a huge difference. I mean, what is love? To me, love is knowing the whole and living from there. The absence of love is being locked in the sense of a separate self, floating about on a sea of other separate selves. And there may be pleasure, but there's also pain. There may be what is referred to as love, but there is also opposites to that, when real love has no opposites. There is just love or the absence of love, or the apparent absence of love. Ultimately, love is all there is. In our experience, we can align with that love, or we can go the other way, and it can appear like love is not there. But like we said before, you are here and now. And here and now, you are, there is oneness, there is love. There is nothing else. There's just this ultimate consciousness, this shining sun which gave birth to everything and all, this apparent spectrum of time and space. This is the dream of our reality. Separation is the dream. It can appear real, but ultimately it is unity that is real. And this unity is what we are. Because when we see we're here and now is one, then we know our identity is one. We know we are one. And what part of one can be separate from any other part of oneness? There are no parts in oneness. Oneness is one. One is oneness. And this is what's happening. This is what the whole world is. All there is consciousness taking on various points of attention, i.e. a single eye as in E-Y-E, or I as in I, a single eye looking through the various parts of itself, a single eye looking through each human being, looking through each body-mind. You know, pure being looking through the human being to find out what it is. It's almost like each human being is a strand coming from the source with an eyeball in the end. It's like everything we do is an expression of and an experience of the source that we came from. Everything we see is an expression of and an experience of the source that we came from. It's just the problem in our world most of the time, or seemingly most of the time, is that we disconnect our own eye from the universal eye, and we become lost, we become separate, we identify with the separation of time and space. We say we are this, we are not that, we are that, we are not this. But ultimately, it's an unbroken consciousness, one consciousness, unbroken. All that is, that's all that is happening, here and now. And if anything else is happening in your experience, it's because you're not here and now. Yeah. So, yes. Okay, yes, when it comes to societal law that tries to lock you into name and number, to a limited sense of self-identity, we are separate from the rules. But not natural law, which is the law of love, which we are. And when I say societal law, I'm talking about how it seems to operate in the world, but actually it's not outside of ourselves, it's the law that we're adopting and placing outside. So it's a limited sense of self-law, and that doesn't hold true. It locks you into something less than yourself, which equates to misery, because joy is knowing self, is knowing truth. So true nature, I've written here, is not locked into time and space, but true nature can choose to express and experience itself through time and space, and this is the purpose of time and space. It's not something we're here to get lost in and forget ourselves. It's here for us to experience ourselves through maintaining that sense of connection, of ultimate self, of pure consciousness, pure awareness, pure love, pure being, pure essence, true nature. So anything less than this, true nature, is not natural. Anything that is disconnected from this true nature is essentially not natural. And I mean, the very functioning of our being is not disconnected from this nature. We are nature. We are nature. And until you realise the spiritual aspect of that, you can see it on physical terms, like our body is of the earth. It heals itself when it's cut. It grows, just like a plant. We grow. I mean, what part of you that you identify with is doing that? No, it's just happening. It's just happening. I mean, the mind that you get caught in, that you live your life by, are you reminding yourself to grow? Are you reminding yourself to heal if you get cut? It's just happening. This is our nature. So you can see it manifest on the physical and extended through the physical. But the physical is not where it ends. It's not the universe in itself. But when we get disconnected from our true nature, we can act and live like the limited is the ultimate, when the ultimate is not the limited, it is the unlimited. It's funny how lost we can get, and how our experiences demonstrate, lay testament to our view of life, to our view of consciousness. So yeah, I think I'll stop there. There's a lot more to talk about on nature, but I'll stop there and do another video.